Oh, hello. I'm Richie, and welcome back to the Shadowed Shelf, where we talk all things macabre and disturbing. And today we're going to be doing a bit of an in depth review on one of my favorite books during this escapade into the macabre. We're going to be looking at Elias Witherow's sequel to The Black Farm, Return to the Black Farm. We're going to be doing this in a bit of a different style to what you would normally expect because I've actually been trying to get this YouTube malarkey put together a lot longer than what I would care to admit. And as a man who is sure he has the ADHD or something like that, he constantly procrastinates when I write scripts about what I want to discuss, and I keep constantly flip flopping on it to the point of where nothing gets produced. Comment if you understand how that is. But so, what we're going to do today to be discussing the Black Farm. So today, with us reviewing Return to the Black Farm, thought it'd be a bit of a decent way of changing up how we normally do a review because I really struggle to memorize scripts with it, so it don't come across sounding very robotic. I've always really struggled with that. So what I thought would be a good idea is write myself some questions and interview myself on how we can review this all together. So all things in with this, let's go to question one. For anyone who hasn't read the first book, what is the Black Farm and why is going back to it the ultimate nightmare? So if you haven't read the first book, The Black Farm, I would highly recommend doing so because this video would make a lot more sense if you did, and you would enjoy it a lot more. So I would advise you all to go and give that a read or listen or however you consume your content. But for anyone who hasn't read it, the Black Farm is a place, a third afterlife that people are sent to who make the decision to self delete. So it's already very macabre when you look at the concept of that. But when you realize what is in store for these people, for these mythological monsters such as Pigborn that are around, because the main ruler of the Black Farm, in terms of its god, is actually the pig, and it is occupied by mutating monsters such as the Pigborn, various other monsters, and also cults as well. And he does come across one extremely perverted person. You come across Muck as well in the first book, which is a very bad place to end up. But yes, go and have a look at the first one for the information on that. But the Black Farm itself is you can never escape the farm. Once you are there, you are there. And even in terms of self deletion, once again, or if you are ever killed, you just respawn at the farm. There's no leaving this hell. It's not even just the concept of it, but also other characters that gets explained throughout the book that make the whole concept of the Black Farm already sounding very taboo and macabre, but what's inside it really is just another level of depravity, I would say. Okay, now moving on to question two. Is Nick spent the first book desperately trying to escape this hellscape? So what on earth could possibly force him to step back inside? And Nick, just to be clear, is our main character throughout the first book and also the second. So, yes, he desperately tries to get away from the Black Farm in the first book and does actually end up being successful in doing so. How he does that, I will leave up to you to find out. But I will say the actions that he committed in the end of the first book directly influenced his return. Without getting into too many details and spoiling it for anyone, he made some choices in the end of the first book, and those choices heavily affected the farm and the pig. And in the opening chapter of this book, Return to the Black Farm, one of the entities from the Black Farm advises, wasn't just advise him, tells him he needs to return for what he's done, and threatens him. I won't go into detail about what it was that he threatened, but he threatened his family because in the early part of this book, he marries his partner from the first, and they have a child together. So when I say he threatens the family, I'll leave up to your imagination on what was said. But just let you know, those threats sent him back to the Black Farm. So that's why he goes back. He doesn't go back for any willing choice. He goes for reasons. So just to give you an idea, so uh, the Pigborn are iconic horrors from book one, but what new twisted parts of them show up in the return? It's more there isn't too much of a extension on the characters from the first book to the second book. The likes of Pudge, who comes along as well, and there are a couple of new characters, but the core horror of the Black Farm itself kind of remains the same. Because without spoiling anything, eventually the way the Black Farm was organized, especially compared to the first book, does happen through Nick and a guy called Danny, and they end up basically bringing the pig back who is in charge of the farm, and from that the pigborn themselves return, who don't really change too much and don't really have too much change about them. It's more they were noticeably absent from the majority of the book, from from basically the big changes in the Black Farm that happened at the end of the first book. So overall, not too many brand new characters, and more of a reminder of the characters from the first book and how macabre they are and how they still exist in this crazy world. Okay, next question, number four. How does Witherow scale up the world building time? I beg your pardon. How does Witherow scale up the world building this time without losing its catastrophic sense of dread? To be honest with you, he more expands on it, and when I say scale up, there's more to it. There's areas that are discussed about the Black Farm that weren't discussed in the first one, such as the area of the location of certain things that he has to link up with certain people to find. But overall, there isn't really much really there compared to how it was changed from the previous. There's still a horrible sense of dread, and there still very much was. How could you really put it? The same sense of dread was there because there was that chaotic factor to it about knowing that the Black Farm itself had been plunged into chaos. So it wasn't more about what extra characters were going around. It was more how did the characters from the previous book be affected by the chaos that's going on, and how is this going to affect Nick? I would probably say more that than anything else. Number five. What is the single most disturbing scene in the book, and how did it make you feel when you were reading it? Probably the most disturbing part of this book is on Nick's journey, he comes across a little girl called Emily. And very much like the father that he is now, he sees himself as a father figure. And of course, is a little girl in the Black Farm. How did they get there? You remember? So that's already shady in itself. And just how much she's out of sorts in this kind of world, and how Nick steps up to be her protector, such as a father figure, is very admirable, even to the detriment of his own story and his own goals. But probably the most disturbing part in the book, I would say, is her end. I would say I'm not going to depth about how it happened, but it it was it was I don't mean it's not even kind of way funny. Like just thinking back to it now, it was because of Nick's actions in the previous book about what he had done to a certain member of a cult. Was basically the reason why she was ended, and it was just the whole scene of her Her passing was very heartbreaking because you could hear Nick, of course, his thoughts and his thought process during it, and yeah, it's a very, I'd say it's a very heavy part of the book. I would say, and I'll probably say it's the heaviest out of all of it, apart from one absolute knife twisting twist at the end of the book. I will not go into too much depth about that because if I do, you may work out what it is. So I'm not touching that. But for me, Emily's passing definitely. Number six. So, how has Nick changed from the protagonist after everything he's been through? He is he still reliable, or is he becoming as broken as the world around him? Oh, you can definitely see the cracks. Oh, yeah, you can definitely see the cracks. Because in all fairness, though, like when you think about books and what horrible trials people go through, Nick has got to be right up there with I Have a Mouth and I Cannot Scream. It must be up there with that. The amount of tragedy and oh, how much, lack of a better term, bad luck he gets, and the amount of trials he faces during this, especially from the first book, the whole encounters with Muck and the fighting pits, and just endless amount of suffering, and also leading in from the heaviest first chapter I've ever read. That from the start of the entire series of this, but he does maintain a sense of morality, such as with Emily in this book. He, despite everything, despite why he's there and what he's trying to do, he's still trying to protect this vulnerable person. And also from the end that she has to see how affected he is by that and what he does after is very admirable. And yes, you can see the world cracking him, but overall, I think his sense of morality and his willingness to get home to his family really just keeps him on the straight and narrow with regards to us as readers. But God knows what's corrupted his mind. But he he held it together despite everything. So overall, I don't know how he's still sane to a degree, even though he does do some very insane acts in both book one and book two. So yeah, I've got two more questions here. So, does the sequel actually live up to the original Black Farm, or does it fall into the classic sequel trap? No, I think it really does it justice because how can you really continue a story like the Black Farm with everything that's talked about in the first book? But I did think this when I finished the first book, The Black Farm. I had no idea there was a sequel. It was only a few weeks later when I seen it on my recommended list, Return to the Black Farm, and it was actually better rated as well. But I had no idea there was a sequel, and I did think in the end of the first book there would be some good grounds to be able to continue the story, and with what I thought is actually what they of course went with. But I think it did really well. It expanded the story. It introduced new characters and a new, like say for Nick, for example, he had a son, and that really instilled in that fatherly instinct into him. What you really see with Emily, you see you see him grow to a degree, but roughly still the same guy he was in the end of the first book. But overall, I'd say it doesn't fall into any sequel trap. It's a solid book. It's a great sequel, and to be honest with you as well, it had the most bleak ending because, to be completely fair, the end of the first book is kind, depending on how you look at it, could be seen as a happy ending. But the end of the second book, well, depends on how you view it. But it's a lot more bleak than the first. I will assure you of that. So, the end of the first book left the door open. The end of the second book kicked that door firmly shut. Yeah, not for the reasons you'd think though. Nick's still alive. And last of all, if someone asks me for a disturbing book recommendation, where does Return to the Black Farm rank, and who is it actually for? Well, to be honest with you, well, let's see, where's it rank? In terms of ranking, there's only one other book, well, two other books, depending on the mood, that edged it for me. My favorite book overall during this entire journey was actually the original, The Black Farm. Just when I heard about the synopsis, I just thought, it's like a man who struggled with his mental health over the years, just to create that idea of an afterlife, but specifically around people who self-delete. It was just a really interesting really interesting context rather, and I just really wanted to see what they could do with it, and what they did was fantastic to me, and just how real they made it, and just that sense of dread. It was just a fantastic. So I would recommend the book, but I would say this book, I would say number four in my one so far. The Black Farm, Last Summer I Died, full brutal, depending on the mood. Then probably return to the Black Farm. But I very much enjoyed this. I think this could be someone's kind of cup of tea if they wanted to look into the more macabre side of the extreme books, if they're not afraid about this kind of subject matter. And if you can get through the first chapter in the first book, then I think you'd be safe with the rest of it. It's a great series. It's a great set of books with a very interesting topic, and a very well navigated. I felt it's a very strange subject matter. A lot of people would be afraid to go into, but I think Elias Witherow does a fantastic job of it, and I will keep my eyes out for more of his books in the future. But yeah, that is Return to the Black Farm. I've been Richie, and this is The Shadowed Shelf. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy all things macabre, please comment, like, and subscribe, and come along with us on this new journey to hell. Thank you.